Hello, everybody. Thank y'all for joining me tonight on Crypto Normal Encounters with B Moss. I appreciate each and every one of you. My guest will be here joining us in the live chat. Well, not in the live chat, but he'll be here joining us shortly. He was running a few minutes late. But I just want to thank each and every one of you that showed up tonight. Y'all just patiently sit by and wait or whatever. Make sure if you have groups or whatever, make sure y'all go ahead and share this live to other groups. I don't know how long I'll be around, guys. I've got other personal issues going on in my personal life right now where I'm not doing too many shows. And I don't know how long I'll be around. This may be my final show, or I may do a few more shows, or I may do some shows sporadically. But because of, just different health issues right now and things going on within the cryptid community, I may not be doing too many more. I've been doing this show now for about since 2020, so almost 4 years. So I will continue to do these shows because I enjoy doing them. But I'm just gonna let y'all know, like, I appreciate each and every one of you that have followed me and that are part of the group on Facebook and who are members of the group on Facebook and who are subscribed to the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. I just want to say, hey, hello to 86 for showing up tonight to the show. I appreciate that. Thank you, 86. Appreciate you very much. Is Isla Ren, thank you, or Isla Ren, Isla Ren, thank you for showing up tonight. Appreciate you very much. Primal Cry, thank you for showing up tonight. Appreciate each and every one of you. We're going to be talking tonight, and what we're going to be discussing tonight, I want to bring some stuff out about cryptids, the paranormal, and then ancient texts, whether it is out of ancient Islam, whether it's out of ancient Samaria, and all of that. I want to bring up some of these things tonight during the show. Lead Tracker E, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate you. Chris will be joining us shortly, y'all. So y'all just be patient and stick around. I appreciate y'all. So Maddie, thank you for showing up tonight. We will be here. Chris is actually backstage right now. He has just joined in. I'm going to be adding him in just a minute. Who do we have here? Anella, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate you. I just want to make sure y'all know we're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to be talking about, like I said, the fallen, the Nephilim. We're going to be talking about the giants, and then giant history in America, everything that they have pulled up from the 1800s on back. I want to thank y'all for that. So y'all just stick around because, like I said, y'all are in for a great show. And also, Michelle Delaney, thank you for showing up. Y'all make sure that y'all go back and like this post, like this video tonight, guys. Like I said, I want to make sure that I, get in here and make sure that I put all this information out there. Don't know how, like I said before, I don't know how long I'll be sticking around. I'm trying to stick around. But like I said, also, I have some things going on where it's keeping me back. We will be on camera here in a second. I'm just going ahead and just kind of filling this space in right now, basically, by giving y'all some updates during the live tonight, y'all. Each one of you who are moderators on the channel, Primal Cry, Maddie, all y'all 86, any of y'all who are moderators for the channel, make sure when everybody comes in, y'all just let them know that we're going to be taking questions. But I'm trying to take questions periodically throughout the show, but I want to kind of wait and take the questions also. Hey, Jason, thank you for showing up. I want to try to take questions like periodically after the fact. But some of y'all who have good questions, I may put them out there as we discuss different stuff because some of y'all have really good questions and I try to wait. But also, guys, like I said, y'all just stay here. And I'm a person, I'm going to let y'all know right now, whenever I do a show, whatever I do a show about, whether it is, and y'all know my beliefs on cryptids, in my personal belief, I believe that they are Nephilim, and I will give those reasons why when I get ready to talk in a second. Chris is just showing up. I'm getting ready to bring him out from backstage right now, but I'm just going to let y'all know my personal beliefs are my personal beliefs, but I also feel comfortable in making sure that I bring everybody on the show who comes in, whether they're my belief or not. I want everybody who comes in and watches the shows to have all different views or whatever on what we're talking about. And there's several different belief systems when it comes to cryptids. Some believe they are straight up flesh and blood, and I welcome those people to come on and talk about their personal beliefs with cryptids. Some believe that they are interdimensional beings. Some believe that they are Nephilim, like I do. Some believe they're demonic creatures and everything else under the sun. So whenever I do a show, I'm never trying to make anybody believe what I believe. I allow everybody to come on and share their points, their beliefs, their theories on cryptids. We're going to discuss some stuff, and I have a lot of stuff to give y'all tonight. I also want to say, as people come in tonight, when it's time for questions, make sure y'all let everybody know to put their questions in all caps, so that it's easier for us to recognize questions, so that when it's time for questions, I can go back and recognize those much easier. And thank you so much. I appreciate you, Primal Cry. I'm going to go ahead and join Chris in right now from backstage, and we'll go into it right now. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Bettina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm glad that you joined me. Chris got here sooner than I expected. I thought I was going to be talking to y'all for a minute. Chris,
I was flying. Thanks for stalling.
I'm going to join you, Chris, on camera in just a second. But Chris, while I'm doing that, can you hear me okay? And can y'all in the chat hear me okay? Let me know. You can hear me great, y'all.
Yeah, I hear you great. Good connection.
Y'all let me know in the chat if y'all can hear me okay or not. I had my Bluetooth, not my Bluetooth, I had my earbuds in, but y'all let me know. Chris, for the ones who may not know who you are, can you just go ahead and give them a brief bio of yourself real quick? Even though you've been here multiple times, can give a brief bio, and I'm gonna grab my ink pen real quick because I want to make sure that if I have any questions or anything that I want to bring up later, you can I'll have that ready. But go ahead and I'll join you on camera in just a second.
Sounds good. I don't know. I'm not very good at brief, but I'll try. I don't know. How do you quantify yourself in this thing? I met Bettina a couple of years ago online through another group, and we hit it off. I've had the opportunity to guest or co-host on this program numerous times, which I love. It's the only really. I did go on Josh Turner's show one time. I enjoyed myself, but this is kind of like my home base. Background on me. I've been an experiencer for 30 plus years. I had my first encounter when I was 25 years old in Wisconsin, and I was hunting, and it kind of kicked off a thirst to understand what I saw, and I've never really walked away from this. I moved to the Southwest. Flesh and blood guy, and he gets on his knees and prays these days. He's had a he's come full circle. And over the course of the last 5 years, we've had a lot of incredible experiences and encounters. I think that we're probably as far down the road as anybody I know.
Is Chris freezing up for y'all? Let me know in the comments if Chris is freezing up for y'all. Chris, are you still there? I don't know if it's Chris's audio tonight or what, but y'all stick around like I said.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You were freezing up for a second there. We got a lot of stuff. But Chris, I'm going to let you start out. Some of the links that I sent you in the week, I sent you a lot of links or whatever on some ancient stuff when it comes to cryptids and stuff like that. And like I said, I'll be joining you on camera in just a second. But can you do you want to expound on your beliefs or your theories on the Nephilim? Y'all, Chris may have to I don't know if he's gonna need to restart his computer,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's
no. I switched over my my internet source. I went to my hotspot on my phone because I've been having a little bit of trouble. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can hear you great.
Cool.
But go ahead, because before I get started, I'm gonna let you go ahead and tell them your beliefs and your theories on the cryptid stuff. As far as I had different theories, and I sent you a lot of links during last weekend, and I want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think about them, and do you also believe that they are Nephilim, or what are your thoughts on them? Like, because we know that they have a lot of different things that are outside of the normal realm. When we say normal, as far as paranormal, supernatural, different things they can do that natural animals do not do.
This is true. So
What are you? What are your thoughts? Your personal experience?
that's a loaded question. It's a loaded question for me because you and I, while we agree on many things, are not fully lockstep on my belief system and your belief system at the root level. I It's really difficult. So Bettina and I reviewed the Book of Giants, the Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher. I'm sorry, and a couple other things over the course of the week. And I've also been taking in. I bought Timothy Alberino's newest book, which is Birthright. And for those of you who don't know who Tim is, I'm sure a lot of you do. He's a fantastic researcher. He's kind of like an amateur archaeologist, but well traveled and spent a lot of time and has a lot of great theories regarding the Nephilim, their migration, flood theories, things that I was able to maybe incorporate a little bit. I don't know if it's in my own belief system, but it's worth paying attention to, and so I guess personally, my belief system, and it's very difficult at this stage of the game for me not to look at this phenomenon through a biblical lens. You know, as I've progressed in my understanding or lack of understanding, quite frankly, about what it is precisely that we're dealing with. And let me preface this by saying that I am primarily, my experiences have been primarily with the forest people, with the Sasquatch people. Um, there was a time where I thought that I'll use Scott Carpenter, rest in peace, as an example. I thought, 7, 8 years ago, I thought Scott Carpenter was on the money. His research, his involvement in the DNA study. I mean, all these things were easy to check a lot of boxes for understanding from perhaps these beings having a partial angelic or higher being genetic code that would allow them to do some of the things that they are capable of doing. Obviously, the laws of physics don't seem to apply. Time sometimes doesn't seem to apply. Um, all the other strangeness that manifests around what I have seen. It's easy to go to that narrative, to go to the biblical narrative, and say, well, they must be this, and they must be Nephilim related. That hasn't been my experience, though. Over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, really, we've had a degree of communication, and they emphatically, whoever we are interacting with, emphatically deny that they are of Nephilim. They are Christ oriented. They revere God and Jesus, which, I mean, that sounds, coming out of my mouth on a public platform, I mean, that sounds almost insane, but that's my truth. That's my reality. So does that mean, and I always take this another step further, because I don't believe that what I and we with the Arizona Four are experiencing encompass the entire phenomenon. It doesn't. It can't. It's impossible. It doesn't take into account all these other cryptids, which I firmly believe in. I know them. I know. I mean, I've seen other things out there, but in that one regard, the entities that we are interacting with, I do not believe are Nephilim. I don't believe they are. I don't think that's true. That's not to say that there aren't similar situations where perhaps that is the root of it. The longer I've been around this thing, the more my belief system has changed. I don't even fundamentally know what it is anymore. The things that I do know, they are not. I don't believe that they are flesh and blood solely. I can't. I have a difficult time even wrapping my head around anybody that still violently argues that point, because if I don't know anybody that has taken a deep enough dive and had any degree of experiences continuously with these beings that can say that. I don't even understand why. I don't understand why it's even an argument anymore, but it is, obviously. And who am I to discount somebody else's experiences where that's all they've seen and that's all they know? So that's their truth. It's always a matter of perspective, right? I think that somebody just posted. Sometimes we talk about Jesus and being, and everybody's lying about that. That's not the case. We've had experiences that are so uplifting and so good, and I preface this by saying I'm capable of being greatly deceived in my life. I mean, these things have abilities that are bigger than me. You know what I mean? And they can manipulate your nervous system. There's a lot of things that they could do that would be pretty grimy if they wanted to. It's never happened with us, not to any of us. We've had healings occur, massive ones. My hand that's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in my life. And I'll go into that at another time. But I had a major healing from that. That doesn't stop me from looking, and so. And I believe in the Word of God, and I believe that the Book of Enoch and the other books in his kind of three books ought to be canonical. They should be. They are considered canon in the Ethiopian Orthodox religion or denomination, which is ancient. They were removed with purpose. Tim Alberino says, and so does Morzulli and a lot of these other people that have taken a deep enough dive that the Genesis 6 sets up the narrative for the entire Bible. And I'll tell you what, the Book of Enoch absolutely fleshes that out and complements it, because it's so cryptic. Like, they're not teaching, Tim believes, and I believe this as well, that the Bible is the story of a giant seed war, between the sons of men, or us, the sons of the seed of the woman, and the seed of the fallen. And that is, if all through the Bible, there's stories that allude to that, And then I'm really blessed that I've been able to do quite a bit of traveling and look at some of these other locations and sites where a lot of that gets backed up, and we'll go into that a little bit later on in the show. But so no, but I don't believe that the Sasquatch people that I've had contact with and I've had interaction with are Nephilim at all. There's the long answer.
So I'm going to bring up a few things real quick. So y'all know, like, already, and I want to bring it into. And thank you, Duty Bird, for leaving your comment. I don't believe they're Nephilim, maybe more like the animals whose DNA was mixed and tampered with. Well, so Duty Bird, like, just to speak on that before I go into what I'm getting ready to bring up in a few minutes, and you can kind of take it or leave it, whether you're Christian or you're non-Christian, I'm not sure, or what your beliefs are on it. But within Christianity and Greek mythology and the ancient Egyptian, and then several other cultures throughout the world, there are several different cultures that have different belief systems and different stories and traditions and different things that they share about these entities or creatures or beings or whatever that exist that are non-human. A lot of the things that were left out, there's 66 books that were left out of the Bible. And some of those books, like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jasher, the Book of the Giants, and probably several other books, and I have not gotten into all of them. Those books are called the Apocrypha. And I believe that some of those books were taken out during the Council of Nicaea. For whatever reason that they were taken out, a lot of those books do have stories in there about the Nephilim. Um, so I want to share some things with y'all about that. I don't know why they took these things out, but I guess it's just the cover up the same way it was in the days of Noah. Like, and if you take the days of Noah, we weren't there. We don't know what happened in the days of Noah, but the book of Genesis goes into it and discusses several different things when it comes into talking about these beings. Chris and I have done probably at least 4 or 5 shows already talking about the Nephilim and the giants. And that also kind of translates or leads over into discussion about the Anunnaki as well, because in the book of Numbers 1333, it goes into where Moses sent some of the Israelites over into the land, into the promised land, to go over and spy out the land and see what were the inhabitants over there doing. He wanted to see what the inhabitants they were doing, what was the land like, what were they eating, all that kind of stuff. And so they came back and they gave him a report, basically telling him, that's Numbers 1333, y'all. And they were basically coming back to Moses, giving him a report, telling him that the land, that the people that are there that we saw in that land, devours their inhabitants. We were as grasshoppers in their sight and also in our own sight. Jason Broussard said Jesus referenced Enoch. It was man in different denominations who excluded it from the Canaan. I read all I can because I don't agree with censorship. I don't agree with censorship too.
So
Jason,
all references Enoch as well.
Exactly. And Jason also understand that censorship, when it comes to the world we live in today, goes way far beyond just cryptids. It goes into big pharma. It goes into secret societies, Illuminati. People don't believe that the Illuminati exists, but whether you want to call it Illuminati or whatever you want to call it, this stuff actually does exist. Freemasonry. I don't want to say too much tonight because I don't want to get flagged. I know a lot of times we talk about certain topics and bring out certain truths that they try to cover up and they try to hide, then those things like that will cause a show like this to have issues. Like when I had Lance Hightower on the show, and Scott Carpenter. You were there that night when I had Scott Carpenter on the show. Scott Carpenter was on the show with me. I think it was last year was 2023, and he passed last year. God rest his soul. But when Scott Carpenter was on that show that night, on that show, I'm the host of the show. I got locked out of that show for about 20 or 30 minutes.
I did all night.
You did all night. And what I wanted to say about that is that when I got knocked out of that show, thank God Scott Carpenter was professional enough to continue and keep the show going and keep talking, even though I was not there. He continued on, and thank you so much in heaven, Scott Carpenter, right now, because he was professional enough to keep it going. And I asked Scott after that show, was that something that has happened to him before? And that is something that's happened before. Scott Carpenter, along with prior to working with Scott Carpenter, Melba Ketchum, at one point they had worked together. But Melba Ketchum had also done the DNA studies on the Nephilim. When I say the Nephilim, y'all, for those of you who don't believe this, just continue to listen on, because I call them Nephilim. You might feel different, but y'all just please understand, I welcome each one of you who come in here in the comments and say whatever you want to say on your beliefs on it. I'm just going to share the information that I have with you. But she did say that in her DNA research studies, when it came to dogman, there was part animal, Bigfoot also, part animal, part human, and part unknown DNA. She said that, and also Scott Carpenter did as well. Scott Carpenter and his research, Scott Carpenter went on to relay that in his research. If y'all have watched any of his shows, and if you haven't watched any of Scott Carpenter shows, then go on his YouTube channel. He's passed now, but I think now his son is continuing on in his research and continuing on with his channel. And and I appreciate his son for doing that. But Scott Carpenter actually captured a dog man on camera. And it's a very good video. And on that same video,
Great, best video ever I've ever seen of a dogman. There's nothing even close.
and it was watching him. Scott Carpenter decided to start doing a back camera. I guess like flipping the camera around. He had what do you call it? A GoPro camera, and he had it flipped around on his back. So he would capture a lot of things that were going on behind him. A lot of these cryptids, they don't want you to record them on camera. And so I think maybe he was trying to do it in a way that he tricked them.
He had him on a, what they call it, a gantry, and with a swivel, and it was, it shows again that these things aren't perfect. You know what I mean? Like that he was able to basically deceive them. It always seemed like when he first started using it, he caught a lot more than he did after a while. I think they were onto it after a while, but absolutely, where his research area in the Smoky Mountains was, I mean, he showed the world, and for anybody that wanted to see it, that there was a lot going on out there, man. He got some crazy stuff. He really did.
He did. He actually even so that dogman that he caught on camera with his with the GoPro turned backwards, that dogman also had some type of what he called like an alien type creature.
An apple sprite. That's what he called it, an apple sprite. It was like a term down there in the South, I guess they used for some of these little gremlin looking guys, an apple sprite on its shoulder, whispering into its ear. Like it was really, really graphic. It was so easy to see. It was great.
Yes, he did. I thought that was very interesting because I felt like, okay, this is interesting. You don't see this kind of stuff all the time. And some of his videos, he captured what I like to call the predator effect. And I'm going to answer Angel Martin or give a comment to what Angel Martin had to say here in just a second. But he has captured portals during some of these videos that he had on his channel. So like I said, God rest his soul, he's passed on now. But y'all go back and check out Scott Carpenter's channel and go through his videos. I believe, and you let me know if I'm wrong about this, Chris, did Scott not for a while stop going out into the field or whatever, recording these cryptids because they started coming to his home?
I mean, I followed Scott from back probably from 2012, maybe 2011 on, and when he was actively engaged in researching. And I always thought that Scott got unnerved. I think that, he was a very devout Christian. And when he started to pull these strings together and come to the belief system that there was a Nephilim / demonic quality to what was interacting with him and what he was experiencing, I think he felt like his Christian sensibilities took priority, as they should, and he stopped actively. There was a time where Scott used to, do gifting and trying to provoke responses. A lot of the kind of regular early on research stuff that people do, and he had a lot of success with that, and. I think Scott's a great example of what they call the hitchhiker effect, because they started coming to his house. I mean, he's got pictures and videos of them, like, of prints of these things climbing up his rain spouts and taking like eggs out of some bird's nest on his roof. They were stealing he had a big bin in his back deck and they were taking the dog food out of it and eating it. And his neighbors started complaining about a little black kid in a hoodie and sitting in the trees, like watching their house. That wasn't what that was, He had and started getting like wet footprints inside of his home, and I don't believe that all of Scott's experiences were all Bigfoot related at this point. I think that he had gotten the attention and the notice of other entities that are, like I say all the time, Bettina, there's multiple situations going on out there simultaneously. It's not all cryptid related. There's others, for lack of a better term, and then you get into all kinds of subgenres with that. Some of it's maybe occult related, some of it's dimensional related. It all has a common thread through it, but he was he had definitely caught the attention, was getting some attention from things that were frightening, you know. And I think he had enough because he didn't. The last 5 years, Scott did no active research. You know, he just kind of put out there what he had, which was plenty. That was plenty enough. If he never researched another day, he'd probably move the ball forward more than literally almost anyone that I know of. You know, God bless him for that.
Donnie Cho, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate that. Y'all, okay, so I'm gonna go right into it. I want to go right into it. So I pulled up a lot of different things, and we're gonna go into the giants. We're gonna bring up the Smithsonian tonight. We're gonna bring up later on the giant of Kandahar, and also what was it? I don't know if this was in Arizona or what, but it was the red-haired giants that they put Love Lot Cave. But I'm gonna go into that later. First, I want to bring up a couple of things for y'all. I'm going to bring up a couple of things for you guys, and I want to address Angel Martin's comment in just a second. Y'all, also want to tell y'all real quick, whatever y'all got to say, if it's like something really like what we're talking about, what we're discussing tonight, whether it's a question or whether it's a comment, and y'all want us to recognize those comments, put y'all's comments and questions that you want us to reference and discuss, put those in all caps. Duty Bird said back in Noah's time, the oxygen was different. Everything was bigger. He said, I'm a Christian, even worked with the church for a while, helping people clear their houses. Did that first about 11 years ago. Thank you for sharing that, Duty Bird. I'm going to address you on that in a few minutes, too. We got so many things to discuss about this. Now, Angel said Jesus referenced Enoch like a commonly read book of the era. I don't believe God is such a flake he would let the Bible be corrupted when it's our guide to eternal salvation. You're absolutely right, Angel. God would not allow that, but man would. And especially when they want to cover up stuff, just like they do today when it comes to dogman and Bigfoot encounters, or the rake, or the crawlers, or whatever y'all want to call that. These creatures, for the longest time, they covered up UFOs until now. They're finally coming out to actually say that these UFOs are actually real. The Catholic Church is actually recognizing that now, and even offering so-called alien salvation. So when it comes down to it, you have to look at things from a mindset and understand that because the fact that books were taken out, the fact that giant skeletons were found from the 1700s all the way up to the 1800s, and even still are being found today, some of them from 7 feet tall up to 32 feet tall, are still being found. But then when the Smithsonian came in, they came in and removed those skeletons and took them, and whether they are still at the Smithsonian today or under secret, corridors underneath the Smithsonian or whatever, there's forbidden archaeology that they just don't want you to know about, especially if it goes against the agenda that they're trying to put out there. People who have seen or killed, and I shouldn't say that because I know we get flagged or whatever for saying certain stuff, unalived, because they censored unalived. These creatures or whatever, these beings or whatever, when it comes to that, or whether somebody has been unalived by these creatures, cryptids, whatever you want to call them, then when these powers that be, or these secret agencies, alphabet agencies that come in and confiscate the bodies of these creatures, when they come in, then they tell the people, like, you saw a bear, or this is a pack of wild dogs, or these people are threatened, and they have their lives threatened. They're followed, black SUVs, different things that happen with that. So anytime there's a cover up, and you know what you saw, I know what a bear looks like, I know what a wolf looks like, and I know what a dog looks like the same way that y'all do. When you got reputable eyewitnesses who are people who have been in the woods all their life, they know how to track, they know how to hunt, they're hunters. You got judges, police officers, park rangers, DNR, and people like that are coming out behind the scenes. Huh? What, Chris? Y'all, he cut out again. When y'all got people like that coming out from behind the scenes, and these people are even being threatened, these are what you would call credible witnesses. Now, eyewitness testimony in court would hold up in court. But when it comes to these creatures, these cryptids or whatever, then eyewitness testimony is not acceptable, or they will try to silence you on it, on the things that they don't want you to discuss. Now, like I said before, Angel, I agree with you. I don't think that God's word is infallible. I know that there's a lot of things that are questions that we don't understand in the Bible. There's things that's not fully explained, but then when you go into the book of Jasher, the book of Jasher is referenced in the Bible as well as the book of Enoch. Those books were part of what you call the Tanakh, the Septuagint. This, you know what I'm saying? So if the Torah, those things were in there in the Jewish writings, the ancient Jewish writings. So when it comes to that, these were books that were taken out. Um, so I'm just letting y'all know that right now. Now I'm getting ready to go into one of the books right now, in case, unless Chris, did you have anything that you wanted to say before I go into the book of Jasher real quick?
No, only then somebody made a valid point earlier, which I also agree with, that, back in the times of the Old Testament, the Book of Enoch was considered common knowledge. I mean, that the storyline behind Enoch, the fall of the Watchers, the rise of the Nephilim, they were part of their regular teachings. You know what I mean? And so to remove it and discount it, that absolutely was a degree of censorship. I always wonder who the they are. You know what I mean? Like, there always seems to be some type of overwhelming, controlled narrative agenda that has persisted for 1,000 years now. You know what I mean? Like, it's so, like, why is there a continuity to that? Is a question that I have. Like, why? Who what has the power other than something bigger than us to control that agenda for generations upon generations upon generations to obfuscate these truths? Like, how is that consistent straight through history? That amazes me, that there wasn't a gap in that, and all of a sudden, some of this knowledge would come to light. I believe that's what's happening today in our times. I think that for multiple reasons, I think the ability to access knowledge and alternative theories, alternative histories, alternative archaeology, and to be able to share it is a lot easier now than it's ever been. Obviously, the birth of the internet has probably been a thorn in this agenda creator side, because it's created platforms like this. It's created the ability to share these stories and to share these knowledge and to ask questions in a group setting where maybe somebody has heard something else that somebody hasn't heard before. So I just wanted to add on to that, because I always think it's interesting that there were, obviously, we talked about the Eastern Orthodox Church having the Book of Enoch, all three of those books in their own Bible and in their canon, and yet it was dismissed. But with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, were original copies of the Book of Enoch were salted away with these scrolls. So God works in strange ways, man. You know what I mean? Because it reinforced it reinforced the storyline in the Book of Enoch in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in a huge way. It couldn't be dismissed anymore at the level that it had been dismissed. It's like talking about any of these other things. Sitchin's work and the Egyptologists that obey that Egyptian narrative that is shoved down our throats. I have a tough time arguing with some of these interpretations of the Sumerian tablets and some of the other archaeological discoveries that are Egyptian based that are found in South America and Central America. I mean, again, these narratives, we're able to share that now, which I think is a blessing if we don't get shut off and censored. Which happens.
Absolutely. And Ania, you said what is his channel? Scott Carpenter's channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Scott Carpenter. Matter of fact, type in Scott Carpenter, the dogman creatures are real. That's the name of the video. Type that in. He uploaded that more than once. He did a breakdown. He did the original video, then he did several breakdowns of it, close-ups, all that kind of stuff. Y'all check that out. Dave Cryptid Adventure said, just like Truth and Bass, they couldn't do a part 2 of their abduction because the powers that be wouldn't let them talk wouldn't let them talk by canceling out their phones for that night. Chris, on what Dave Cryptid Encounters Adventures just said, can you speak on what happened during the night to your phone specifically? I had Scott on the show that night. Before you say that, let me tell y'all this before Chris goes into that, and I've got some stuff for y'all right now that's going to let y'all know that these apocryphal books, the books that they call the Apocrypha now, but they were originally books that were in the Bible that were taken out. It was 66 books that were taken out. Probably more than that, but they basically tell you 66 books were taken out. But I'm going to say this real quick before he tells you what happened to his phone that night. That night, real quick, when Scott was on the show, that particular night, I was knocked out for over 20 or 30 minutes. And so when I was finally able to get in for a hot second, I decided and I think Chris was messaging me during that show, text messaging me during that show. And I said, Chris, I'm going to add you in as a co-host because I keep getting knocked out. And even if the host of a show gets knocked out, you can still add a co-host. When I added Chris in as a co-host, Chris got knocked out 2 or 3 times. YouTube has never done that before, not to that degree. It knocked him out 2 or 3 times. I just asked Scott about his DNA research. And when I asked him about it, he got ready to start talking about it. I got knocked out. Chris got knocked out, and it knocked him out 2 or 3 times. And like I said, Scott went on to talk and discuss it, and it went on no matter what without us being there, to the point.
He had a good signal. Whatever it was, it didn't block him out. Yeah,
absolutely. And Chris, you remember I ended up having to call his phone just to get back on there to host and still ask him questions. And finally, I was able to get back in there. But I'm going to let Chris tell y'all right now, like after I added Chris back on as a co-host, Chris, tell them what happened while you were co-host. And this goes into the cover-up and censorship.
I'll go into, I'm the first one to look for logical explanations to anything. It's not like, I've been knocked out for a second since we've been on, you know what I mean? But this went a little bit beyond that because as soon as Bettina started to open up the Pandora's box of the DNA study with Scott, I had just gotten on. I just said hello, and I got kicked out. And then I got kicked out 3 times in the next minute. And then I lost all internet connection from my house. My modem went dead. It's brand new. And so I tried to use the hotspot on my phone, and I lost all internet capability on my phone till around 1 o'clock in the morning. And my Wi-Fi, house Wi-Fi, didn't go back on until 6 or 7 o'clock the next day. Nobody else. I looked into, my neighbors didn't lose it. It was solely here in me. So, not to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but that was really, really, really coincidental. And I don't believe too much in coincidence anymore. So, I got to think that for whatever reason, I had some really poignant questions that I wanted to ask Scott because I'd had the opportunity to talk with Melba many times, also David Paulides, personally many times, and I had some insights that I wanted to flesh out with him that night, and I didn't get the opportunity to. So, I don't know why that happened, but I got a funny feeling that again, the all-encompassing agenda creators decided that wasn't a conversation that they wanted me and Bettina and Scott to really have that night. So yeah, it's weird, man. It happened.
They sure didn't. And so on the level of censorship, and Angel Martin, if you're still out there, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or feel like you're being attacked, because you're not. And I appreciate you. And anybody who's in the comments that disagrees, I still welcome your comments. Chris is the guru of what do you call it? The devil's advocate. He likes to play the devil's advocate a lot. So anybody who comes in there, I really appreciate that. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to take y'all's questions and comments later. Everybody, moderators, make sure y'all let everybody know who come in the chat. Let them know to make sure to put their comments or whatever that they want to say, anything that actually stands out to what we're talking about and discussing, and your questions, all caps. Y'all, all moderators, let everybody know that and greet them as they come in. But real quick, Primal Cry, I'm gonna let Primal Cry get this in. Got a burning question, put it in all caps. Thank you. So that's not a question, she's letting everybody know. Thank you, Primal Cry, I appreciate that. Now, y'all, I'm gonna give y'all out of the Book of Jasher, and like I said before, the Book of Jasher was mentioned in the Bible, and so was the Book of Enoch. And when I give y'all some of the things that were discussed or talked about in the Book of Jasher, just like today, how there's this censorship and cover up, then you'll understand why it was taken out and why the Book of Enoch was taken out. And you can actually pull up the Book of Enoch on audiobook and also pull the Book of Jasher up on audiobook. Y'all can listen to that on YouTube as well. Hey, Gerald Williams, thank you for showing up tonight. But I'm gonna let y'all see that it's the same censorship that they had back whenever the Chris, do you know when the Council of Nicaea, do you know what year that was?
Like, no, I don't. I'm going to sit here and hazard an educated guess, but I don't remember off the top of my head. A long time ago, before 1200 AD, but I want to think it was earlier than that. It's a Google question.
Absolutely. So you go into that right now, Chris, while I go into this with them real quick. Because this is important. So, like the same powers that be, the same controlling people that came in and to cover up the giants, and we're gonna go into that too because it's so deep, and some of those giant skeletons, y'all can actually look that up. Matter of fact, while I'm talking about this, if y'all can do it, or if you got another computer or in your phone, if y'all on laptop right now, go to Genesis 6 Giants with Steve Quayle. Steve Quayle, L.A. Marzulli, Tim Alberino, Tom Horn. They went deep into this back in the early 2000s, probably around anywhere between 2000 and 2012. But I'm going to go into the Book of Jasher real quick just to show y'all that these cryptids or whatever, we call them cryptids today, but they were hybrids or chimeras. So Book of Jasher, chapter 36, verse 20 to 35. His brother Esau and his sons and all belonging to him went to the land of Seir and dwelt there and had possessions in the land of Seir. And the children of Esau were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly in the land of Seir. And while he was feeding his father's asses, he led them to the wilderness at different times to feed them. And there was a day that he brought them to one of the deserts on the seashore, opposite the wilderness of the people. Opposite of the wilderness of the people. Hold on, I don't want to mess up, y'all. Hold on just a second. Opposite to the wilderness of the people. And whilst he was feeding them, behold, a very heavy storm came from the other side of the sea and rested upon the asses that were feeding there. And they all stood still. And afterward, about 120 great and terrible animals came out from the wilderness at the other side of the sea. And they all came to the place where the asses were. And they placed themselves there. And those animals from their middle downward, y'all listen to this. This is Jasher 36:32. And those animals from their middle downward were in the shape of the children of men. Children of men, that's humans. So from the middle down, okay. So from the middle downward, they were in the shape of the children of men, and from their middle upward, some had the likenesses of bears, and some the likeness of the kephas. We don't know what the kephas are, with tails behind them from between their shoulders, reaching down to the earth like the tails of the Duchi path. And these animals came and mounted and rode upon these asses and led them away. And they went away and upon this day, unto this day. And one of these animals approached Anna and smote him with his tail, and then fled from that place. And when he saw his work, he was exceedingly afraid of his life, and he fled and escaped to the city. And he related to his sons and brothers all that had happened to him. And many men went to seek the asses, but could not find them. And Anna and his brothers went no more to that place from that day following, for they were greatly afraid for their lives. So this goes on to say, in Ezekiel 35 and Jeremiah both tell the destruction of Edom as well as those demonic cohorts of Mount Seir. Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51 are two different wars. However, it is the same demonic entities controlling the Zionist people. Now, I'm just telling y'all this. Y'all don't have to agree that they were demonic or anything like that. I'm just telling you what these books say. But they are essentially Nephilim hybrid creatures in the shadows, giving these wicked people orders. So basically what I wanted to say with that is that that's just one retelling from the book of Jasher. There's way more than that, and I'm gonna give more into that in just a second. But before I go any further, Chris, did you have anything that you want to go into or say or comment on before I give them any more from these books?
I was reading along with you, and I'd read it earlier this week, and I think it's important in this specific link that you sent me that it's quoting the Book of Jasher, and then it's adding a modern narrative,
Their
like,
commentary.
yeah, like commentation on the on the reading itself. So that has to be looked at. But I don't know, I don't know that they're wrong, but I think the compelling part of this is the fact that they are talking about human hybrid creatures. Now, I ask myself this. I mean, I don't think that in the times that these were written, that there was a lot of fiction that was written, period. I don't believe that. I don't think virtually, the written word wasn't used for a source of entertainment or pleasure, you know? So I don't know that to be true, but I believe that. I don't think that there's a huge, you don't see a lot of Lord of the Rings type, you know, fiction stories dating back to these times, man. So
Mm-hmm.
if somebody took the time to transpose this tale, this story, there has to be a kernel of truth in it somewhere. It's just like everything else in the Old Testament, quite frankly. That these aren't fantastical stories. These are what these people were taught, what they believed, and what they'd seen, and this matches right up with it. And it again goes back to the stories of and multiple stories, but it goes back to the tales of the Nephilim in Genesis. That it's almost impossible to dismiss these things as not being true on some level. You just can't. It defies common sense to think that somebody was just creating these fantastical stories and then putting it in the most sacred text that they have and projecting it onto the population. That it doesn't make. I think that the obfuscation has been projected onto the population, but this was their truth, man. It has to be looked at as these people firmly believe this, and some of them must have witnessed that. So that was my commentary on it.
PG63 said, so we got a safety talk about bears at my job today. We don't have bears in Kansas. I'm not sure why, but maybe Fish and Game are calling dogman bears now. Well, they also refer to, and I might be wrong about this, but from some of the encounters from people who I've interviewed on the show and some other people have interviewed on the show, a lot of these attacks, unknown canine attacks, are being put down as dogman. A perfect example of that, and I'm going to go into more writings or whatever, let y'all know in a few minutes, that these things, dogman, Bigfoot, and other creatures, hybrid, chimera, whatever you want to call them, they are ancient and they've been here for thousands of years. But they were common. It was commonplace. It was a common thing. It wasn't some strange thing with the people back then. They saw it. They drew these things and painted these things in the pyramids and in the caves wherever they lived. These were things that were right there with them. Like we're told that man did not live alongside dinosaurs at the same time, but then you have footprints. And this is another thing I was saying before when it comes to um, what do you call it? Archaeology. What do you call it? I forgot. I'm trying to think of the word trying to use right now, but forbidden archaeology, where you have footprints right there alongside dinosaur footprints. The cavemen, whatever they were living at that time, they wouldn't have painted something like that didn't exist, that they didn't see in their own time if it wasn't there. You're not going to paint something. You wouldn't know to paint a dinosaur if you've never seen something like that before. But Chris, before I go further, did you have any other thing that you wanted to say about that?
Well, you brought up some good points. I mean, if you look at some of the ancient Babylonian reliefs, Sumerian reliefs in Iraq, and you see these, and Egyptian for that matter, you see these depictions of, maybe the pantheon of their gods, and almost every one of them has a partially human body and a partial, there's dogs, Anubis and Horus, and birds, and you know I find it very challenging. I'm not to say that some priest wasn't, you know, perhaps imbibing some, hallucinogenic, and I'm sure that happened too. But why would they put these in their most sacred, royal, and tombs and places that meant such meaning and depth to them if they weren't transposing things that they witnessed and that they had seen. It's so easy for like a traditional historical narrative, an archaeological narrative, to paint myth and legend as a lot of it's used as allegory and not as actually factual truth and evidence of what they're painting and what they're picturing. I don't believe that. I find that really difficult to believe. I mean, I've spent enough time down at the ruins in Mexico where there's so many identical, and I mean, I sent you a picture a couple weeks ago. I was at Chichen Itza, and there's a Mayan relief of this bird-headed man holding again that pine cone, which I hear many people believe that could be a representation of the pineal gland, whatever it is. And I sent you a picture, one that I pulled off the internet, of the exact same figure in a Sumerian relief that is identical, a bird-shaped man creature holding, again, this possible pineal gland pine cone representation, all the way around the other side of the world with the exact same stuff, man. So how do you like, how does traditional archaeology and Egyptologists, reconcile that with any validity? They can't even talk about it because they have got no answer for it, because it doesn't fit the narrative. Again, it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't mean it's not true, because it is true. That's what I was saying.
Absolutely. So some of the things, like, and growing up as a child, I never understood. I never understood, never even read much into it. It was never broken down in church as far as Genesis 6. And I don't think to this day, I can't remember a time when Genesis 6 was ever really covered. When it talks about that the sons of God came in into the daughters of men.
They
and
kind of gloss right over that, don't they?
Yeah, they glossed right over. They took wives of all of which they chose. And it said that the offspring of those sons of God, and I'm going to break that down to y'all in a few minutes. And so I'm going to break that down for y'all in a few minutes because it's really important in understanding this. I didn't take anything into it, but the offspring of those sons of God that came down into the daughters of men, take into account that when they say sons of God, daughters of men, they didn't say sons of men and daughters of men. Sons of men would have been human. Daughters of men would have been human. In the Old Testament, when some people want to say sons of God, that means that those are Christian. No, sons of God were not used for Christians until later on when the New Testament came out and Jesus had come in. And anytime sons of God was used in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh or the Talmud, Septuagint, or any of those ancient books, it was referring to the angels. Now, there's a scripture in there that goes into the fact, and I think this might be I can't remember this in the book of Job or not. I do have it in my notes, but I'm going to just reference it for y'all real quick. When it say that there was a day that the angels, the sons of God, it said the sons of God came to present themselves before God, before the throne. And also Satan also came to present himself before God. That is letting you know right there that the sons of God, they were presenting themselves before the throne of God. Satan came also among them, and God asked them, "Where have you come from, Satan?" And Satan said, "From walking to and fro in the earth." And a lot of people think today that Satan is already in hell. And for those of you who are not Christian, just stick around still, because we're going somewhere with this. Anything that you don't agree with, just that doesn't apply to you, just throw it out completely. But I just want to make sure I get this out there. So I'm just showing that sons of God in the Old Testament was referring to angels. When it talked about creation, it said that the morning stars and the sons of God also rejoiced when he had created the heavens and the earth. They rejoiced. Sons of God in the Old Testament were referring to angels. So people have an issue. Sometimes there's different beliefs when it comes to how the Nephilim came about. Some people say that they didn't exist. These were rulers or judges. That's what the sons of God were. That's what some of the Jewish scholars or whatever believe. But If you take that into account and you say that there were human judges or scholars, and in the Jewish writings of Talmud and the Tanakh, that is one way. Sometimes the Tanakh was talking about judges and rulers, but take it into context of what is being discussed at that time. If it's saying judges and rulers in the way of lording over the people, then that's one thing. But when it's talking about that the sons of God came into the daughters of men and took wives of which they of which they chose, that and the offspring of that was giants, then how are you going to get from regular human judges and priests and rulers? How are you going to get giants out of that from regular natural human men and regular human women? We don't even see that today. And if you want to bring up the facts that, well, you had like Andre the Giant, or the people who have gigantism through their thyroid, that is something completely different. These giants at that time had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And they were also so big that some of them, like the largest skeletons today, were like 32 feet tall. They were devouring. In Numbers 13:33, they came back and gave Moses a report. This is a land of people that were devouring the inhabitants. We were as grasshoppers in our own sight and also in their sight. When was the last time that a judge today, a magistrate, a ruler, or anybody like that, you would call a ruler, a president, a prince, or anybody that or prime minister, when was the last time that somebody like that of that degree created a giant with another human woman? So that doesn't really fit there. And then when you go into the Tanakh, because some of y'all need to understand when it comes into dealing with this stuff, let's go back and see what the actual Hebrew said. Let's go back to see what the actual Hebrew said, because the Bible is going to give you their interpretation of it. But when you go and look at the actual Hebrew, which I done with this and went into the Tanakh and the Talmud, and when you break it down, the sons of God, and I looked it up, B'nai Ha Elohim was the word that is used in the Tanakh and the Talmud and the Torah for sons of God. And it's also, when you also go into the Hebrew or Tanakh or whatever, the Hebrew dictionary, and it said sons of God. Another word for sons of God in the Hebrew dictionary was angels. So they're still within Judaism. And I don't want to be coming off as anti-Semitic, because I'm not anti-Semitic at all. And there's so many different areas I can go into Semitic anyway. I'm not going to go into it because that's a story for a whole nother time, because let me just leave that alone. I'm not even going to go into that, who the real people are. But I'm going to say this. The fact that the Hebrew Bible actually, the Hebrew, the Tanakh or the Torah actually said that the sons of God, and then you take the Hebrew, I'm going to call it hieroglyphs, or the Hebrew writing for that, sons of God, and the word for angels was the same. Now, Chris, before I go into bringing up real quick, do you have anything you want to say before I bring up more scripts for them?
Yeah, I do. I want to present a few things real quick. So let's talk about what we just talked about, where you talked about taking wives, and let's talk about the importance of covenants and dominion. And what are we talking about here? It doesn't say that these 200 fallen watchers came and raped women. It says they took them as wives. That's a covenant. So why did they do this? Why did they do this? And there's a great belief that I'm kind of leaning towards these days, that it talks about in the Bible that Adam was given dominion over earth, over birds, beasts, the land. All of it was the dominion of Adam. In his genetics is the right to be a steward of this planet, to be a steward under God of this planet. So if these fallen took these women as wives, that means there was a covenant with their fathers. There was in those days things like a dowry. When you married, Rebecca, you got 50 goats and some pasture land, whatever. There was always something that came with a marriage. You basically, it's almost like you purchased a wife, right? So there's a school of thought that thinks that these the fathers that agreed to these angelic beings, they appeared as probably very handsome human men, and they they made a covenant with the fathers to take these women as wives, which I think is interesting because what it does is they it talks about in the Bible about them desiring to also bring forth children of their own. So that being said, if they have a legal covenant with, it's almost like they're trying to stave off, the wrath of God by trying to do things as legally as possible. So they have a covenant. They marry these women. They have children with them. So their children still have 50% of the genome of Adam, which is, I believe, gives them the power of having dominion over Earth still. So the genome is not fully corrupted to the extent where they no longer have dominion over all that they see, which they did have. And you talked about like the size of these things. I'm not so sure that that at birth that they weren't the same size as a natural human at that time. I think that they just grew in a incredibly quickly large way to become what they were. That book of Jasher talks about how one of the commentation was how it segued. This is where the stories of the Greco-Roman demigods and deities came from. I believe there's some validity to that. I think that when you look at, it talks about that these were the mighty men of old. But what are we talking about? Like Hercules, there was a mighty man of old. It talks about the Titans, right? In Greek mythology, which were giant humanoid deities, basically, or demi. To me, it just makes sense that those stories stem from something far older and a different root. And I don't know, that's kind of the points that I wanted to make. I've there's been some great comments in there. One of the comments I kind of goes with this was it's talking about the Phoenicians and Carthaginians. And so I'll go back to Timothy Alberino, who probably has done the deepest dive in what I would call the Nephilim migration theory. And Tim believes that the Phoenicians were a Nephilim tribe and descended from Nephilim, and they were also great mariners, which has also been brought up in the chat, which is how I believe the Nephilim made it to North America. And I believe that was also antediluvian times as well. I think that a lot of these Mayan / Incan structures we have no idea how they were able to accomplish that, were accomplished far older than what we're taught they were. A lot of these things have been, other cities and structures have built on top of them. But I think there's some validity to that. I think that the fact that the Phoenicians may have been an Nephilim tribe and that they were capable of great mariner feats. I mean, we're taught that before Christopher Columbus, maybe Leif Erikson, nobody from Western Europe was ever set foot on this land. I don't believe that's true. I just don't. I think we've seen enough evidence with the Hopewell Mounds throughout North America. Again, the Aztec, Mayan, and Incan structures in Central America and South America to indicate that there was culture and civilization here long before Western Europe ever showed up, and I've seen enough to back that up. So anyway, that's all I got to say on that.
Absolutely. Bon Hasso, if you're still out there in the comments, stick around. Bon Hasso, I've had him on my show back when I was doing my shows in the group, and I have to have Bon back because Bon had a terrifying story when he encountered some Bigfoot in the woods several years ago. So I want to have him back. I also had Mr. Woods, who's in the comments right now on the show as well. Y'all are coming up with some really good questions and comments tonight, and I really appreciate y'all because this is amazing. And so I'm making sure like that tonight, because of the comments you guys are leaving, I'm trying to make sure that I add y'all into what we're discussing tonight, because there is truth, there is information out there to be gathered and to be brought up and discussed. And I want to make sure that you guys are actually added into our discussion tonight. 86 said, I think Black Cow was a government code name for Dogman. Black Cow 86 was actually the code name, I believe, for Bigfoot. Black Dog was the code name by the government for Dogman. Then Mr. Wood said dinosaurs are not what we were told they are. And Mr. Woods, I have some questions on that, and I agree with you on that also. I do know that they tell you that certain stuff is extinct to this day, but some things that they say are extinct have actually resurfaced. They said the Tasmanian tiger, whatever, was extinct, but then I don't know how many years later, I don't know what year they declared that to be extinct, but then several years later, there was still Tasmanian tigers still walking around. They say that pterodactyls were extinct, but then there's videos still on the internet right now with pterodactyls flying around in Arizona and Texas. And
I was just going to bring that up. There's a great local story. It happened right where I live. The I-17, which is an interstate that runs north and south from basically Phoenix all the way up to Flagstaff. There's not too long ago, within the last 10 years, a guy caught some video of a pterodactyl looking type, flying something, flying above his car, in front of his car, and then drifting off into. There's a lot of really dark canyons on the 17, Black Canyon. There's a lot of really, really remote places that it cuts right through. Who knows, man? I mean, I tend to believe it.
I agree. Yes,
everything's possible.
Spilling tea with Sparky, and I swear to God, like y'all, I've got so much stuff for y'all right now. I'm gonna go into it, but I want to make sure y'all are part of this tonight. You said Wolf is so right. God made you for a time such as this. Stay on YouTube and keep on keeping on. And I'm gonna make this real brief. And I do believe that I was created for a time such as this. I know that my grandmother died back in 2011, and when she died, like, I went through a lot of grief behind that. She had dementia, and when she had dementia, it was really to the point where all her systems, like kidneys, everything started to fail. And I'm giving y'all testimony right now, and I'm gonna make this brief. But the night that she started, everything started to fail. The family had made it in from Kentucky, Ohio, and everywhere, whatever, and they called all the family in or whatever to say their last goodbyes and stuff like that. But I prayed, and I cried, and I prayed, and everybody was praying, and then it came down to it. But they found out Grandma had signed like a, what is it? Do not resuscitate, DNR, do not resuscitate. And but the family was upset about that because you had the doctors back there. One doctor they tried to resuscitate her when she flatlined, and then another doctor came in, and they were having a discussion over to the side because one doctor, I guess he found out later, didn't know that there was a do not resuscitate, so they're kind of having an argument over to the side. And the family at that point, like my aunts and uncles, they're trying to figure out like what to do about this, like, because everybody's distraught. They want Grandma to keep living, like nobody's happy about it. So later on that night, when everybody left the hospital, I get back to Mom and Daddy's house. My parents both went to bed. This is my mother's mother. My parents both went to bed that night, and I couldn't sleep. I'm sitting up in the den. We called it the den. I guess you would call it the great room now. But I'm sitting in there, and I'm writing, and I'm crying, and I'm praying because I saw my cousin who died back when she was 21 and I was 23. She died back in 2002. And I saw her like when I was at the hospital that day. I talked to her before she flatlined and died. And she saw some things in her hospital room at the end of the bed. But, people like to say that's hallucinations, which I don't agree with that. There's a lot of deathbed confessions, people seeing angels or demons at their bedside and different things, different other relatives who've already passed on that come in order to come and take them on with them. But this night, when we got back to my parents' house, my parents went to bed and I was still up. And at this point, I'm up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We got back to the house about 11 o'clock that night. And they had told us to prepare for the worst. I'm sitting up on the couch and I'm crying, and at one point, and I'm exhausted, and I'm kind of just mentally and emotionally stressed out. And I started praying, and I asked God to make her completely healed, let everything come back, heal her, let her come back to her right mind. And what I heard next, and I swear, y'all, like I'm not lying, I had not gone to sleep yet. I'm not hallucinating, nothing. I'm not dreaming. I heard a voice, and it said, the voice said, I told her to come up here where she is on earth right now. While she's down there, she's in a bat. And I'm paraphrasing. I should have wrote it down word for word at the time. But the voice basically said, I told her to come up here. When she comes up here, she's going to be completely healed. She's suffering and she's not in her right mind where she is now. But I'm going to bring her in a better place. Because when I started to pray, I wanted her to be healed. But then I said, no, that's a selfish prayer. Not my will, but your will be done, Lord. And that's when the voice started talking. And I call it the voice, whether you want to call it the Holy Spirit, God, or an angel. The voice said that. The next morning at 5 o'clock, I went to bed. I went to sleep. Like right after I heard the voice say that, I had a peace come over me. I went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. So I only had 2 hours of sleep. My mother came in the room. Tina, get up, hurry up, get up real quick. The hospital just called. Everything is shutting down. Mama's heart rate, her blood pressure, her kidneys are shutting down. They said, everybody get up here now. My mom, my dad, and my other aunt, one of my aunts got up there. We got to the hospital bed, and I'm sitting there alongside the hospital bed. The nurses came in. They're putting the flashlight in her eye. She's not responding to that at all. I'm saying all this for a reason. She's not responding to any of that. Now, as I'm watching all this, and then I'm seeing this, grandma's eyes not open. She's like unconscious, like in a comatose-like state. And as I'm seeing all this, my mind sitting alongside the hospital bed, I'm questioning, is this God? Did you really say that to me last night? Or did I just want to hear that to make myself feel peace? Did you really tell me that I'm bringing her? So at that moment, as if God is saying in that moment, like, I'm going to let you know for sure right now that I actually spoke to you and I told you what I told you last night. In that moment, in that very moment that I said that, it's like God said, I'm going to show you right now. At that moment, all of a sudden, grandma's eyes, and I told y'all she was in a coma, her eyes shot wide open, her head tilted up, and she looked straight up to the ceiling. Tears started rolling down her eyes. My auntie is like, see, I told y'all mama's going to be all right. Mama's going to be okay. She's fine. Like, I told y'all mama's going to be okay, because grandma had 12 kids. Nobody wanted to make that decision right then to like actually say, pull the plug. So in that moment, when that happened and grandma looked up, a tear started rolling down her eye. And my aunt Sheila was like, no, like, I told y'all mama's okay. I said, no. I said, I just got confirmation of what I just asked God about what happened last night at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is what is going on. I said, she is answering to his call. I said, he didn't call her home. So at that moment, even though she was on life support, I believe grandma got that call right then, and she saw or heard his voice at that moment. And she was responding to that. Not one of our voices did she respond to. I said, whether her spirit is outside of her body right now and she can see us standing here, I said, regardless of all that, she's not responding to us, but she heard his call. And so that was confirmation. It was a lot of things that happened at that moment. Kay Bennett said, I wonder if folks who can see dogmen also see spirits, dead people, thinking along the vibrational level or dimensions. Chris, you want to speak on that before I comment on that?
I'm going to speak on a little bit of what you just talked about, and then I want to bring up a interesting message that was on the in the chat, a comment. And
I'm going to take a quick bathroom break real quick. You keep talking to them. I'll be right back.
I got you. So, like my mother passed away in May of this past year, 5 days after my wedding. And it's a real quick story. I was down on my honeymoon in Mexico, and I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. I snapped up out of bed. I was very close to my mom. And I had this overwhelming sense of peace come over me. And this thought came into my head. If mom goes, everything is fine. Everything is okay. She wasn't well, but it was still somewhat of a surprise. And so about 4 hours later, my wife and I are walking out of a couples massage, and my sister had called my wife and informed her that my mom had passed away around that time, that same time at night. So I believe that we get touched by these things if we're tuned to it when it happens. And then there's a comment that I want to address because it's interesting. It's I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Frosian says there are a lot of petrified giants around the world, indicating something devastating happened, like a huge explosion. In the Bible, there are references of flying chariots and all sorts of sort of facts. So it makes me think of I don't know if you guys are familiar with Michael Tellinger or the mud fossil phenomenon because it's a thing, you know. But I've seen enough of that. I've seen enough. I mean, Tellinger has got these spots in Africa, South Africa, where he did a lot of his own research, he has come across these. He calls them mud fossils, which are, you know, like I've seen human hearts the size of like, you know, my living room, you know, where the aorta is cut. I mean, they are absolutely what these things are. Feet that are the size of my living room table of like giant appendages that have been cannibalized. Like there's saw marks on these things where they scrape flesh from them or however they dismantle these bodies, which would indicate that, yeah, there was something devastating that happened to create that. A lot of people believe in the you know the mud flood theory, which you know may have occurred. I mean, there's enough flood stories. Every ethnic group in every corner of the world, Native American, straight through to Greek, straight through to our own Bible, has a flood story. You know, so without
Yeah.
a doubt, there was some catastrophic event that occurred that may have created some of these phenomena that we're witnessing now. I was just with Jesus Payon, believe it or not, in New Mexico in December, and he's a big mud fossil guy. You know, like he traverses the dry riverbeds, and he's pulled up some really interesting things. I think he may have found a few of these things. You know, I believe that they're real. I if Tellinger's worth looking into if you guys haven't heard of him. He's got some really incredible work that he's done. It kind of ties in with a lot of the Graham Hancock um, historical narratives. I think, you know, Graham Hancock's another one of these guys that's kind of bucking the tide that brings out some really fantastic evidence that doesn't back the traditional historical narrative that we're fed. So absolutely worth paying attention to. Hancock's great, and obviously Zechariah Sitchin. A lot of these stories that we're talking about, I mean, the Old Testament itself, the entire Genesis story is taken from sources that were thousands of years before there was such thing as a Hebrew or a Jew or an Old Testament. You know, Genesis 6 in the translations from the Sumerian tablets is 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 right in there. I mean, it's almost identical, the story that they're talking about. They changed the name of angels or watchers to Anunnaki, and they're off-world Anunnakis that in Sitchin's narrative were stationed on Mars that came down and against the will of the ruling Anunnakis on Earth took human wives, and humanity, according to this, had been created basically through Anunnaki DNA and a native hominid of our planet. So I don't know that that's true. I think that Sitchin was right about a lot of things, you know, but and it also, you know, it's a tough pill to swallow, or one for a Christian to swallow, to believe that the Word of God is taken from something outside of the Torah and those ancient scriptures, from something that's so much older that talks about these things long before there was an organized religion around it, you know. But yet it's there, so it has to be looked at, and it has to. I had to keep my mind open to a lot of other possibilities as a result. You know, I mean, the jury's still out. My belief system is ever evolving when it comes to all these phenomena, because there's just so much that we don't know. You know, so yeah.
And and
Back.
what I wanted to tell them also, like real quick, because I don't want to get too far off. narrative, but I do understand, and I really appreciate y'all in the comments because y'all have got a lot of great comments, a lot of good commentary. Want to give y'all some more stuff also out of these books, and then Chris can probably, because of his research that he's done, he can give y'all some extra biblical books on these things too. But since some of these books were taken out of the Bible and are not in the Bible at our time, I will still call those extra biblical books. And like I said, you can take it or leave it, because whether it is in the Apocrypha, or Greek mythology, so-called Greek mythology, or Egyptian mythology, these things were things that they saw at that time. So I really appreciate y'all, and I'm going to address y'all's comments as much as I can. Bon Hasso, if you're still out there, and Chris, you see, just keep checking the comments and let me know Bon is still out there. I'm gonna reach out to him after the show. I've interviewed him before, but Bon is somebody I want to have back. And Bon, if you're still out there, stay there. I'm trying to get to y'all's comments as I can, but I really appreciate y'all because y'all have made this a great show tonight. I do want to bring up the genetic experiments of the fallen and wicked mankind. So when you got Genesis 6, and Genesis 6 goes into that there were that the sons of God came into the daughters of men, that there were Nephilim in the earth. Some versions say there were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and some Bible versions say there were giants in the earth in those days. What we do know for sure is that the Nephilim were giants. Whether you want to say giants or you want to say Nephilim, the Nephilim were giants. They were giant offspring. So Genesis 6. Now, where Genesis 6 left off, the book of Enoch goes greater in detail and explains what was going on in the days of Noah. So does the book of Jasher, and so does the book of Giants. Now, here's one source that I have here, and this is off a website, and I'll try to post those links within the group. For those of y'all that are not in the group, my group is Crypto Normal Encounters with B. Moss on Facebook. Now, the Genesis experiment. The Bible records that some of the fallen angels interacted with humans and corrupted them in several ways. We're specifically told that the sons of God had children with humans, and that these half angel, half human creatures were called Nephilim. That's Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Furthermore, according to the book of Jasher, the fallen angels and Nephilim were practicing horrible genetic experience before the flood. Jasher chapter 4, verse 18. It says, and their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days, those are humans, took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other. This is in the book of Jasher, so this is genetic experiments, like what we call today. What would you call that today? Like
gene splicing,
cloning, and stuff like that. Now, so it goes on to say the mixture of animals of one species with another, and other in order therewith to provoke the Lord. And God saw the whole earth, and it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon earth, all men and all animals. At one point in time, I used to wonder, well, why were the animals destroyed for what the giants were doing? But when you get into it, and they were also defiling the animals, he goes on to say the book of Enoch, another inspired recommended reading by the Bible, records the same. Enoch chapter 7, 5 through Enoch chapter 7, verse 5 through 6 says, they also began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. So if you look where it says they went on to sin against birds and beasts. Okay, so if you want to take birds and beasts, like let's just say birds, like you got the bird type dinosaurs, and you got the beast or whatever. If you got like half wolf, and then if you heard earlier when I brought up like about half bear, half human or whatever, and have other animals and stuff like that from the waist down. And then even the book of Isaiah mentions, Isaiah chapter 11, it mentions the satyr, what we would call today a goatman. These things, there's nothing new under the sun. These things already existed. And it says, and they began to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. That's why the Bible says, do not eat anything with the blood in it, because these things were doing that. And like by doing that, like you're not supposed to eat anything with the blood in it. Then the earth laid accusations against the lawless ones. So basically all I'm saying is that the fallen angels, not the fallen angels, but like the fallen angels, they were already out of order. And I think in the book of not Job, but what was that other book where it talks about that the angels who sin against God, I think the angels who sin and defile themselves with women, that was in the book of Jude. And so for the people who didn't understand that, that goes right back to the book of Genesis. These books basically pretty much confirm what has already been said, but you got to go into these extra biblical books in order to be able to understand what they were doing. They were going and creating different types of hybrid creatures. So Chris, go ahead and you elaborate on that, and I'll go into bringing up some more people's comments in the chat real quick.
Enoch is fascinating to me. Like we talked about earlier, you can't really fully comprehend the gravity of Genesis 6 without a compendium of reading the Book of Enoch, because it totally fleshes out in much greater detail what was going on back then. And I think it is absolutely shameful that modern day theology, seminary schools are literally, this is to me such a critical part of what we're dealing with. I love Alberino's take that that the Bible is like Game of Thrones but real, and the whole thing evolves around a seed war. That's what we're talking about. If the evil powers, the fallen satanic forces can corrupt the genome of man, that was their initial thing to do, was to make it so that Christ could not be born. If they had corrupted man to such a level that Christ would no longer be able to come among us, that was their initial agenda. That failed. So he takes it one step further. It's kind of like Enoch 3.0, you know what I mean? Like he's got such a great theory that I really, really took a deep dive in it, that he believes that what we're going towards now is a complete corruption of the genome of Adam that's inherent in all of us. And that genome gives us dominion and power over this earth. And if we look at what's going on in the world today, and this is, there's enough to this that I believe it, where we talk about the transhumanism, which is a huge concern now. You look at the pushing of the trans agenda, and I am not transphobic. I'm just speaking what I see. You look at the incorporation of AI, and what does this look like to our grandchildren, right? And I'll look at this through a biblical lens. If you got Elon Musk, trying to interface, putting chips.
Can y'all still hear Chris? He cut out, y'all. But Chris cut out, and I don't know if y'all can still hear him. Let me know in the comments. Can y'all still hear Chris?
There I am.
All right, okay. You're back.
Yeah. Wonder why that just happened. So I don't know. I'll pick up where I left off. So what does it look like in 50 years if we are interfaced with internet technology, so that, and it almost goes to biblical reference, where without the mark of the beast, we'll no longer be able to purchase goods, seek employment, live and interact with society on a mass level. And so let's say my grandson determines that he is not going to get the implant that is going to allow him, because I really believe this is what our future is looking like. They're doing it now. Think of the technology that is now so commonplace in our lives. I'm a Gen Xer. I mean, I grew up with no internet and 3 television stations and no cell phones or any of that. So I've watched this occur and become part of the zeitgeist of our life and our societies, right? So what does it look like if in 50 years, this is a common technology that as our kids and our infant and our elementary school kids can scroll on their phones like it's nothing. What's that going to look like in 50 years when they're plugged into the network? It dehumanizes them. It takes part of their humanity out. And I believe that there's some validity to the fact that if our genome is corrupted to such an extent that we no longer retain enough genetic core atom DNA to have dominion over this planet, then that may be the goal. And maybe that's what's going on now in our own society. I mean, let's face it. I mean, things are insane right now. There just seems like we're living in this bizarro times, man, where all these topics are coming. Do you really think, like, I've been around this thing for 30 plus years, right?
Yes.
Have these conversations like we're having now. When you have Congress, holding hearings on UAPs or UFOs, that stuff was, I mean, guys that were considered tinfoil hat crackpots are now like experts on Fox News, man. I mean, we're in a time now where, the lid is off of this stuff. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. They're just trying to steer it in the direction that they can, but they don't have any control over it anymore. They have none. They can shut us down. They can turn our internet off. But you know what? It's already there. Like, you hear about people ascending. I hate that term because it almost to me it sounds not Christian. However, some of the New Age stuff kind of spooks me a little bit. But the reality of it is that there's a level of awakeness that's happening in humanity right now that's incredible to me. That we can talk about these fringe topics which are drifting into the center now. The cryptid stuff, the alien stuff, the occult things are all no longer things that are, out on the edges. They're definitely kind of streaming into mainstream society at a exponentially rapid level. That's what I'm witnessing, what I believe, and what I see. So I want to be part of that. I want to stay awake to that. That's what woke is to me. Woke is this. It's this. It's awakening to the fact that there's so much out there that has been hidden from us, has been obfuscated from us, and somebody talked about, I think Jason Broussard, who I always appreciate his comments, said, like, we're still learning, but we are now able to learn at a faster rate than we've ever been able to dig into these things, just to be able to share amongst ourselves and bounce ideas off about all this stuff. The cryptid stuff is just like peeling the Band-Aid back. It just asks so many more questions, man. And I love the fact that this ancient text that we have been raised on, and it's been changed, but it's still there in its foundational form, is like the go-to at this point for a little bit of context to maybe what we're dealing with in our lives in 2024, man. I am passionate about that, absolutely. I love it. I love being here doing this with you guys. I love like-minded people that are able to divest themselves of narrow minds and narrow views and open themselves up to stuff and take a deep look at what's really happening in our lives and in our past and in what's happening in our future now, and maybe put some structure to it and find the right path forward, man. It's a beautiful thing.
What I want to say real quick, and I'm trying not to divert off too much. Y'all, I tell y'all what, because of tonight's show and y'all's comments and us having to cover so much commentary, and this happens every time we have a show on the Nephilim and the Giants, what's going to happen is that we're going to have to do a part 2 and 3 of this. And I say this every time because I enjoy doing these shows with Chris. We've been doing this since 7:30. It's 9:14. I'm not going to shut it down just yet because I want to give y'all.
We're 2 years into this topic and haven't even scratched the surface. That's the reality. It's just like show 12 or something. I don't know.
I'm serious. We done so many
on 21, man. Like seriously, we did. So.
And so what we're going to do probably is end up doing a show again, which we probably need to start just doing Q&A shows on this stuff because there's so much, because y'all's comments alone are good enough just to do a show off of. Like right now, Richard Cox, he said, Leviticus 26:22, I will send wild animals against you, and they will rob you of your children, destroy your cattle, and make you so few in number that your roads will be deserted. And so on a smaller level, when it comes to that, we do know that dogmen and Bigfoot have been known to mutilate and kill cattle, and some of it is just for the satisfaction of killing. Sometimes they're not even eating these creatures. They're not even eating the livestock. We've heard stories of Sasquatch basically braiding horses' hair, and I don't even want to go into the other atrocities that are happening with that. There's several stories. I've interviewed Kumbo before, and he's talked about what Bigfoot have done in relation to cattle and horses. And I don't want to go into that, or, because it's just too gross to even talk about. But I also want to bring up Duty Bird said there's a building in Egypt no one allowed in that has a picture of a man who is dressed like a Mayan. The hieroglyph is strange because it's a mix of Egyptian and Mayan. What I want, Chris, this is not a great show like they comments tonight.
I was just talking about that stuff, man. Look at the stuff Steve Quayle's pulling out of Mexico on the other side. It's all Egyptian artifacts, man. I mean, come on.
And then earlier in the comments, Chris, you live in Arizona. Is the Grand Canyon, is that in Arizona?
Absolutely.
Earlier
I have spent a lot of time with the Grand Canyon. Before I cut my hand off and went through all that, I had I hit the lottery. There's a route to see how if you can. I was supposed to go North Rim to South Rim, and I had it in my mind that I was going to venture off the beaten path and go into the areas. And you're only allowed to view and visit like 10% of the Grand Canyon. There's so much more out there, man. It is such a bizarre, awesome place. It really is.
Suge, if you're still out there, please leave your comment again about what you said about the Grand Canyon, because I'm scrolling back up and it's taking a minute. But Suge had said something about the fact of what they found in the Grand Canyon, and a lot of people don't realize that in the Grand Canyon that there are several pyramids in the Grand Canyon, and there's several areas in the Grand Canyon that people are not allowed to fly over or go to this very day.
All of these structures that are named in the Grand Canyon are named after Egyptian history. There's the Temple of Sheba. There's all these all these places have an Egyptian root is in their names. Almost all of them. I mean, and then we've talked about this before. You get into the stories of Kincaid's Cave, which was before the Grand Canyon was a national park. It was a prospector in the early 1900s that went down there and walked into a cave, which I believe is the entranceway to the Temple of Sheba, which you can see from the viewing section of the South Rim. And there's a doorway in it. And apparently he found.
Well, he's cut out, y'all. There's Suge's comment. The Phoenicians made it to the Grand Canyon. What people don't realize is that there were several different ancient Egyptian, Aramaic, and several Egyptian, Aramaic, and Hebrew writings, texts, and hieroglyphs that were found on Native American burial grounds here in the United States. So when Suge said that Phoenicians made it to the Grand Canyon, yes, Suge, you're absolutely right about that. We do know that they did make it here. And so you got to wonder if those people are the same people, or were they all from all over there in that part of the world and came here at one point, or when the Native Americans were here, did they come here after the fact? I don't know. I'm not sure. But some of those native tribes, not all, but some of the native tribes were speaking some of those language, or either that, or they were interacting with some of the people from those other nations, other countries.
That goes into that story that I've told you about the petroglyph site in Utah, right? That has and I would tell you guys to Google this. Look up a woman by the name of Patricia Kent, and she's an archaeologist that has worked in north of St. George, and she's kind of been the caretaker of this site called the Anasazi Ridge. I would Google those as well, but YouTube, she's got so basically what it is that there's this petroglyph site in Utah that has hundreds of petroglyphs, but there's a panel, 17 petroglyphs that cut through this thing that depict the entire Genesis story from right to left with Hebrew symbols all over it. It is incredible. I don't put a lot of stock in carbon dating, but it's good for certain segments of time, although it's impossible to know what the root of time was. So it's always subjective, but the organics in these petroglyphs have been carbon dated at 200 AD. So ask yourself, how does a biblical Old Testament story, this thing goes right in, it's incredible. I can go on for hours about this place, but how does that appear in a canyon in Utah, 1,300 years before Western civilization ever made it to the North American East Coast, let alone to Utah? I mean, it defies logic, but yet it's there. I've seen it, and it's not like one of these spots where, oh yes, I guess that's maybe what it is. That's exactly what it is. Once it's pointed out to you, you'll never unsee it. It's an incredible place, really cool. Patricia Kent and the Anasazi Ridge. It's worth a look on YouTube because gives credence again to a truthful historical narrative that will never be taught, here ever.
Y'all, it's like 9:30. Y'all let me know in the comments y'all want us to keep going. Suge said, I heard a theory today that the fallen angels traded knowledge or technologies for the daughters of man. Isn't that what so-called aliens are doing today? I want to say this real quick, and then I'm going to let Chris speak on this because I'm not knowledged when it comes to the Anunnaki. But what I will say is this, is that when I believe, and I can't remember right now if this is in Numbers 13:33, but I do remember that when they went over there, they said, there we saw the sons of Anak. Anunnaki. Now, I might be reaching, but I don't feel like I am reaching. And I say that because I believe that the Anunnaki were also giants. And just based on what you said there and some of the other things, like when you got the shows like Ancient Aliens and they're going into it. Ancient Aliens, they're not a Christian type show. They're more, I guess you would call New Age or I'm not even going to say a New Age or occult or secular belief. But they will use the Bible when they want to, and then when they don't want to, then they'll kind of throw it out.
Yeah, so, they cherry pick it.
They cherry pick it. So, like the fire by day, the cloud by day, fire by night, they say that is a UFO. The Ezekiel's wheel in the middle of a wheel, according to the History Channel show Ancient Aliens, then that Ezekiel's wheel in the middle of a wheel, that was a UFO. Chariots of the Gods, Zechariah Sitchin. So when you look into all these things, all I'm saying with that is that they, even though they do not agree with the Bible and they are of a secular belief, by them using it at all, that is still their way of still saying, yeah, we acknowledge it, but this is what it is in our belief. That's letting you know right there that basically they understand, whether you want to call it an angel, whether you want to call it the Anunnaki or whatever you want to call it, or whatever. You have the Greeks, so when you got the Greeks, you called them the gods. You had Zeus, Hercules, and all those, and those gods came down still to earth and were intermingled with human women, and they created giant. So whether you want to take it and say, I don't believe in the Bible, okay, but if you believe in Greek mythology, okay, you don't believe in that either. Either way, several different cultures all over the world, even within the plumed serpent, Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, they had beings that came from the heavens, from the sky. Like they called them the plumed serpent. That means a feathered serpent. Plume means feathered. Feathered serpent. Okay, so feathered serpent is a feathered serpent. Well, that means a flying serpent. So is that a dragon? The Bible brings up dragon all day, and then in the Chinese culture, they talk about dragons all the time and said they existed. So it's just several different things. But go ahead, Chris.
Sitchin never dismissed the Bible. He was a biblical scholar as well. I think he just made the connection between what he decoded from the Sumerian tablets to the Old Testament and to the Torah. But I don't think those guys like to, Sitchin's kind of the granddaddy of the ancient alien stuff. But Sitchin was able to kind of make the two theories work together. You know what I mean? Or make the Bible work together with the with his depiction of the Anunnaki tales, and also there was another thing that Suji had put up about the fall in trading technology for the daughters of man. That again comes down to covenant and dowry. Like, I believe that was what they basically paid the fathers of these daughters to take them as wives. Was advanced technology that they weren't prepared for, weren't ready for, and weren't advanced enough to have created on their own. So yeah, I believe that. I do believe that, absolutely. As far as Quetzalcoatl goes, Quetzalcoatl. I was just down there again. And many believe that Quetzalcoatl is depicted as a winged serpent, which would give credence to a satanic view, but also the stories is Quetzalcoatl was a man that came there that taught them maybe advanced mathematics, how to till their fields, things of that nature. Like, he was considered a teacher, in Aztec culture, also in Mayan culture, and I always find it interesting that the depiction of Quetzalcoatl and the Serpent Mound in Ohio are almost identical. That was got to be a connection there somewhere, man. You know what I mean? Absolutely, there is. I don't know what that is, but somebody else made one other comment that I got to touch base on, referring to the people coming across the Bering Straits, Sasquatch / giants, and I do not believe, and we had a show about this, that the traditional red-haired, double-rowed teeth, six-fingered giant is in any way, shape, or form the same thing as a Sasquatch. I think they're two completely different entities. What their roots are, that's open for debate, man. But I don't think we're talking about the same two types of creatures. I really don't. I never have. It's never made a lot of sense to me. I believe that the giants, of my understanding, are way more of a flesh and blood phenomenon. I don't believe that the forest people, the Sasquatch people, need to migrate anywhere. I don't think that that's a problem for them. I don't think that they have to be in the physical realm all the time. I think that they have the ability to move at great speed in a different way wherever they want to be, basically at will, whether it be portal phenomenon or just some inherent ability, part of who they are and what they are. So I do believe that those are two completely different entity phenomenon that we're talking about when we bring those two things up.
Mr. Woods, you said the British Museum also has an ancient book on how to train your dinosaur, so that should point to the truth, what a dinosaur really is. Now, what's interesting, they say that they will tell you little bits and truths, whether y'all believe this or not, little bits and truths or whatever, hidden in plain sight. They'll tell you little things in Hollywood movies, and it's funny. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, because I'm going to go back and watch that again. But there was I ain't gonna say cartoon, but like an animated movie called How to Train Your Dragon. And to me, like, when you look at it, when you look at that, you say How to Train Your Dinosaur. They're back early on, before they started calling them dinosaurs. I think they called them terrible lizards. Terrible lizards.
That's what I call my ex-wife.
They called them terrible lizards, but they were also serpents. Like, you look at it, like you look at the Komodo dragon today. Some of these things, they were just extra huge. So for me, and I might be completely wrong, y'all can take it or leave it. If y'all can leave y'all's comment, and it's fine. Like, we can talk about it later, because I know we're diverting off, but this is all intertwined all together, and it's worthy of discussing. But to me, and I might be wrong, so don't y'all crucify me for this, but if we're looking at Nephilim, and we look at the fact that these fallen angels, sons of God, or fallen angels, came down and had sex with human women, if they also came into the animals, as y'all heard, and I read it from the Book of Jasher and Enoch earlier, they also came into the reptiles. So if you get a human that has sex with a fallen angel, then the result of that is a giant humanoid. Then what are you going to get if you get a reptile? Now, Chris may not even agree with me on this, and y'all may not agree, and it's fine. That's just my theory, and I don't know either, but I'm putting it out there because I'm trying to make it make sense. Then if you got that, then if you got a giant reptile serpent, then is that not a dinosaur dragon? And there's videos still today, like you don't see too many of them. There's videos still today of dragons flying around. Where do they hide out at? I have no idea. I'm just saying the fact that dogman, a werewolf, for lack of a better word, Bigfoot, a troll, exist. For me right now, the fact that that exists, um, fairies, leprechauns exist, Dracula, vampires, everything is open right now for me for all of that. I don't even want to talk about it. Chris, you know what? I got you on speakerphone. My earbuds is not even working. You on speaker, and I don't like to say that word out loud because I don't want to call that thing back in here because I got it out of here. But um the black, say it, Chris. I don't want to say it.
What, like the shadow people? What are we talking about here?
Yes, Chris just said it, and that didn't really help because I got it on speaker. My earbuds ain't working for whatever.
I got sage burning on my bench over here. Like I come into this thing like with talismans and whatever. You never know what you're gonna draw into you, man. So I don't have any experience with those guys other than 4 years ago I'm out with Kevin Keeney, right? We're out up on the Mogollon Rim and we're in the middle of freaking nowhere at one of our spots. And we're talking about a darker topic, right? Like and we usually don't talk about negative things. They don't like it. So we're guys, it happens. And I was bringing up something about these darker entities, right? That we hear about. And take this how you like it. Kevin got mind speak. Don't talk about those things. It draws them to you. And literally, it was not Kevin thinking. I mean, that we've had a lot of that in the last couple of years, but that was one that always stuck out to me. And like I said, I've always felt like my own theory on the Bigfoot people when it comes to this is that I almost feel like maybe they're here is maybe what the Watchers were intended to be, and which was to perhaps guide us spiritually and maybe provide some degree of spiritual protection to those that are open to it. That's been my experience with them to a certain degree, and we took that as a warning, like don't engage in that, especially out here, because it seems like there's a little bit more activity in these more desolate places than there are maybe in our living rooms. Not that can't happen, I mean, that transitions into so much weirdness. I avoid occult topics because they make me uncomfortable.
Yes.
I don't pay attention to people that really take deep dives in that stuff. I don't like messing with that stuff. I don't like messing with like Ouija boards and any of those things, because I don't think anybody, regardless of how much they think they know about any of these topics, that includes me, man, has any real idea. There's no definitive assurity to any of it. You know what I mean? And I think just dabbling in what I do dabble in with the forest people, and I've been really blessed and lucky to have these great experiences. But man, I've heard some horror shows when it comes to some of these lateral topics too, the occult stuff, things like that happen to Scott Carpenter. For is a great example. Like I don't want that in my life. I don't want it yours. I don't want to draw it to me. I rely on Christ for those type of protections, and I've had to utter those lines. I've rebuked things that I felt were negative around me before. It's been effective, so I think I'll keep using that tool.
Chris, I want to give up real quick. Jason Broussard, I don't know if we're friends on Facebook or not, but if we're not, still send me a message on Facebook. It's Bettina Moss. I've got 2 accounts, but one of them is old and I don't even remember how to get into that one anymore. But my profile, let me look at my Facebook profile real quick so I can tell you, because I need you to reach out to me. I need to talk to you after the show. Bon Hasso, I need you to reach out to me after the show as well. But my profile picture on Facebook, I have on a black shirt with the pink flowers on it, and the cover photo is of my Yorkie in the background. Reach out to me after the show, and then we can exchange it, because I really would like to talk to you some more, because I love like the knowledge and the information and your ideology on a lot of the stuff that you're saying tonight. Bond, I'm gonna reach out to you also. I got to get you on the show, because I had you on when I was doing the show in the group. Mr. Wood said the deeper one digs, the more ancient the civilization is that are found. Every single civilization was erased the same way, and they all have the same message that's been covered up along with warning. Absolutely. Mr. Woods, Mr. Woods has been on the show before too. And I'm just trying to show y'all, when I'm bringing up these ancient texts, like I said, you don't have to be a Christian to accept this, and you don't even have to agree with everything I'm saying, but I'm just bringing stuff to y'all to let you see that these things have existed for a long time. Now, just like in 2 Samuel chapter 23:20, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts, he he unalived two lion-like men. I had to say, he unalived two lion-like men of Moab. He went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit in time of snow. Now, let me tell y'all what that say to me, and y'all can disagree with me or not. Let me read that for y'all one more time. He had done many valiant acts. He slew two lion-like men of Moab. Then he also went down and unalived a lion in the midst of the pit. That's two different things. That's a differentiation made right there in 2 Samuel 23:20. He killed a lion and two lion-like men. That's two different things right there. And if you go and look it up in the Septuagint or the Hebrew, the actual wording or hieroglyphs or whatever you call the way that they write, like that, the wording on that is completely different. So then you got the commentary from the people who are commenting on this. So they were in the Hebrew, they were called aerials. It says, are the aerials or lion men hybrid genetic alterations? If so, what is origins of the aerials? How did they end up in the land of Moab? Why were these creatures unalived along with the lion? So this person has the same thought process that I have on it. There's a differentiation there. Two lion-like men. I don't know if they're saying because they were courageous. I don't think that that's what they were saying. Two lion-like men, two men that look like lions or that were like lions. And some scriptures actually put it in the words that they had faces like lions. But it goes on. This is the author of this particular post, his commentary based on 2 Samuel 23:20. It specifies the lion men or aerials were killed along with a lion. Does it imply that they were genetically modified, or is it about their characteristics and their fighting styles and strategy? So that's just another situation right there that I'm trying to bring to y'all to let y'all know that there were other things out there. And then when you look at the Sphinx, that has like the somewhat like, does that not have like a human type face, the body of a lion, all that kind of stuff? But go ahead, Chris.
No, I was agreeing with you. I mean, there's enough of these statue depictions, structure depictions of these hybrid beings. I mean, throughout history and throughout modern, I know the archaeology that we have now. And I mean, Egypt is loaded with that stuff.
And like I said, y'all need to go back. These scriptures that I'm giving y'all, go back and look at it in the ancient Torah, the ancient Tanakh, the ancient Hebrew, and it will give you the actual Hebrew writing or spelling of it. And it's completely different. For the lion-like men and the actual lion, it's completely different wording on that. The ancient Hebrew is going to give you what was actually said, regardless of our Greek or Roman or English interpretation or translation of that. Y'all, we got a lot of stuff, and every time I have Chris on the show, y'all always come with a lot of comments and a lot of questions. So a lot of the stuff I will not be able to cover all of it tonight. We're already at 2 hours because Chris got here about 7:30, a few minutes after 7:30. We already at 2 hours. We could probably go for another 2 hours because I'm not even halfway finished with the stuff I got for y'all tonight. Sugay said, remember to put y'all's questions in all caps. Real quick, Chris, keep going. I got more stuff for him, but you keep talking on some of the stuff or getting some of the questions, whatever, while I'm looking up some things. But Duty Bird says there's a part in Enoch talking about some of the women willingly going to the fallen because of how they were built, so to speak. And Chris, I
Yeah,
don't know if you know this real quick. Let me tell you this before you go. Do you know, Chris, like in that when they get to talking about the fallen, that those 200 that came down, they gave some of the names of the chief ones that were teaching men different things. What do you think about that? Witchcraft, like
it's
makeup,
funny.
all that kind of stuff.
There was there's a. No, I don't attend church. I practice the tenets of Christianity, but very personally in my own way. I don't believe in organized Christian denominational religion anymore. But I got there was a local church that right on the main highway, and they had a big billboard, and they were doing on Saturdays a an expose on demonology and angelology. It was, and I don't even know what the denomination of the church is. So I went on one of the Saturdays just to see, and they were talking about the hierarchy of angels and some of the more traditional angelic stories that were taught. But they started breaking down some of the Hebrew stuff, which is where they really go into a deep dive about not just the archangels that were made aware, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, but they start breaking down some of, and they all have the L in them, whatever EL. I don't know if that's a Greek or Latin derivative from whatever their names are
It's
translated.
Hebrew.
So I they started breaking down some of these angelic names, and I asked a question which got completely sniffed. It was I think one of the they talk about the main leaders of the Watchers rebellion, right? And it was a rebellion against God. It wasn't the same as Satan's rebellion, but it was a little bit smaller scale, same thing. And I think it was Azazel was one of them, and I don't remember all their names. I there are a list of them, and they're listed in Enoch. They're named in Enoch. What these who the chief collaborators are of these and not only that, it breaks down what their I guess for lack of a better term specialties were. You know what I mean? Like some of these and then these I'm always curious where the distinction lies between the 1/3 of the heavenly host that fell with Satan and where the 200 rebellious watchers that defied God and what the connection and correlation is. We're taught that the watchers were punished and shoved under a mountain and for the end till the end of time, right? Yet I've heard enough theory about the spirits of these fallen are still among us, and that they're not in corporal form like they initially were, but they're still able to walk amongst us in a demonic capacity, right? And I always wonder, like, are they part of the same crew? Are they part of Satan's gang, or are they a separate group of, disgruntled, angry, punished entities that are that hate mankind for the reasons that they have? I don't know. There's got to be a connection. I always wonder if Lucifer is their leader as well. If the head of the rebellion of the Watchers falls under his purview of the hierarchy of who's in charge or not. I mean, it's a great question. I don't know the answer to it. I've looked for it too. I just never had anybody really explain that to me that had a deeper understanding of theology than that.
Absolutely. Y'all, I'm gonna talk to Chris after the show. We're at past 2 hours now.
Yeah.
This is interesting. I love y'all's comments. Chris, did you want to take some more comments or?
Richard Cox said the rebellion against God happened before the Watchers. I'm aware of that. Like I know the rudimentary stories behind it all. I mean, obviously, the rebellion occurred way before. The Watchers were not part of the rebellion. They were another contingency of angels that defied and went against what their directive was. But I always wonder what the end result is. Do we have two different sets of demonic entities? The fallen watchers and the and the 1/3 of the heavenly host that also defied God and rebelled. I don't know what the question. I don't know the answer to that. That was kind of where I was going with it.
I'm gonna read this to y'all, and I'm gonna leave it here because after I read this to you guys, what I'll do next, what I want to do is bring a correlation or a question type correlation between Gigantopithecus,
Ugh.
the giants, Gigantopithecus, giants, Neanderthal, and I can't remember the other one. I'm gonna have to look it up again. But I'm gonna read this to you guys, and then we're gonna come back for another show. Because it's so deep and it's so much. It's not just a small amount of information when it comes to talking about the giants, the Nephilim, the fallen angels. We haven't even gotten into the supernatural abilities, and y'all heard me talk about this before, but I want to bring it full circle specifically as it relates to the fallen and their abilities, what they were teaching, and how that applies to what we know today about how they were able to transform themselves into different forms, or what you might call today, what we call today shapeshifters or skinwalkers. They were able to shift into different forms, whether it's human form or the form of some other animal, or whether they were able to fly or walk around, or it was just several different things. And so you can tie that into aliens, you can tie that into like the aircraft or like the chariots of the god. It's so many different areas, so it's all intertwined. But we haven't even gotten into it. People want to talk a lot of the times about, well, it can't be fallen angels, or angels wouldn't have sinned, or angels wouldn't have done this or that. But if you're a Christian and you feel that way and you say that, well, then that's not what the Bible says, and that's not what the Apocrypha, Jasher, or Book of Enoch says. And even further, if you want to completely take those books out and say that that is not part of Scripture, then you can take that out completely too. But the book of Job is still in there. Not book of Job, the book of Jude is still in there. And it talks about the fact that women should cover their heads because of the angels. Now, whether that means that the women are supposed to cover their head literally, like how the Muslim women do, or if that means that sometimes when it says cover their head, that means that a covering is that a woman has a husband and that is her spiritual covering. Now, whether that is the case or not, I don't know, but it goes on further in scripture also to talk about the fact that we would also judge the angels that sinned against God to defile their bodies with women. So it goes into so many different areas. Now, real quick, it said there were giants in the earth in those days and also after that in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Now, also after that, modern day, 1700s, 1800s, when some of the Native American tribes were here and still living, they interacted with and saw these giants on a regular basis. They were taking the women and children. You got the giants of Lovelock Cave, you got the Kandahar giant. And then you also have several different stories all over not just the United States, but all over the world, giant skeletons that were found all over the world. One thing I want to say, here's from wordpress.com. Not only have thousands of giant skeletons been found in North America alone, they are part of the fossil record. Gigantopithecus has been explained as an anomaly. An anomaly? That means that they can't explain that. They don't understand it. We don't even know what that is. In the human evolutionary tree, I guess they didn't know what else to do with this. Now, this is this person who wrote this article. This is his opinion on it, but Gigantopithecus. So we're gonna talk about that. I didn't think that I guess they didn't know what else to do with it at the time.
Take that seriously, man. I just can't, but I'll listen.
I get you, Chris. I get you them. That's just his opinion, just like this is ours. I'm just reading some of this real quick. You can talk after I finish this. I'm gonna let you speak on Gigantopithecus if you want to, and then we'll cut this, and then we'll come back and go deeper into this later because we ain't even covered the giant skeletons that were found here. But it goes on to say, he is best explained with the biblical record. Those thousands of skeletons found in huge burial mounds west of the Mississippi, American Indian oral history of a giant race they struggled with, and even fossilized footprints. And then there's several links on here. So y'all, I will try to share some of these links in the group because I don't know right now. Matter of fact, let me see if I can share some of these in the chat. If I can share it, then I will share some of these in the chat. But go ahead, Chris, real quick. Speak on Gigantopithecus.
Okay. And I don't want to be dismissive,
No,
but
I love it. Go ahead. You devil's advocate.
no, not towards you. Just about the entire premise of the apers, for lack of a better term. God bless them. Is that Gigantopithecus is what they hang their hat on, and the reality of it is that it's based upon a jawbone that was found in China. It's got literally no connection to any primate that ever walked the earth in North America. Ever. Yet an entire narrative that takes any sort of paranormal, supernatural, unexplained quality in regards to this phenomena was created through that one piece of physical evidence. That's all they have to build on. There isn't anything more than that. Jeff Meldrum, God bless him, all these other guys that I'm sorry, like I've said earlier, you cannot be engaged in this phenomenon in a significant way. You can and not see that there is absolutely a unquantifiable variable that accompanies the forest people and some of these other cryptids that is not that's got nothing to do with a flesh and blood creature. And I do believe that they're capable of existing in that form when they want to. I don't think that it isn't a permanent thing. I've seen them disappear in front of me. I've seen them turn into balls of energy in front of me. I've seen these things. That's what I've witnessed. I don't claim to know why it happens. I just know that it does. But I can't ever understand the animosity and the anger when
Yes.
we bring this in. But you know what? It always comes down to something we were just talking about. What is the universal symbol of humanity and life? It's a triangle. It's the importance of a three-way triangle of mind, body, and soul, right?
Yes.
So that's been around since the dawn of time, since our first thoughts among humanity. So what does it always seem like is the most dismissed out of any of it is always the soul aspect of it, regardless of whether you want to dive into organized religion. Man's spirituality is just as fundamental to our existence as growing our brains and keeping our bodies right. And it seems to be the most the out of all three of them, the one that's dismissed so easily. And I always wonder, why is that? Why is it that we take a spiritual element of our own core fundamental being out of the equation on purpose, by design? It seems like, and it comes at us in so many different ways: removing God out of church, removing a spiritual element to this phenomenon. It's done on, to me, it's done intentionally. It's done on purpose, and so I can never not walk away from that, because I believe thoroughly, one of the things I know thoroughly is cultivating our spirituality, and whatever that looks like for you, and you hope it's not in a deceived way, is so integral to who we are as people, and I'm passionate about that. Like, spiritual growth is just as important as going to the gym, man.
Real quick, OCIR, I don't know if that's OCIR or just, acronym, but don't who was it? Donut Predator. Hold on. Donut Predator, you said you're near Scottsboro. I need you to reach out to me after the show, because I don't know if you were saying that you had some encounters or what, but you about 45 minutes away from where I am right now. Donut Predator, I don't know if you're still out there in the comments, but if you're still out there, are you familiar with Redstone Arsenal military base? I know back in 2023, dogman were killed or unalived over there at the military base. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm having a hard time with this.
I don't want to be unalived. I want to be
Killed.
lived.
Donut Predator and OCIR or OC or what, however. I need y'all to reach out to me if y'all here in North Alabama, because like we're gonna get together if y'all want to, because we need to get this together. Donut Predator said you from Sound Mountain, and I don't know where Sound Mountain is, but I've heard of Sand Mountain several times. Just whenever they're talking about tornadoes and stuff like that, and they're bringing up stuff. I need both of y'all to reach out to me, Bettina Moss on Facebook immediately, and also Jason Broussard. Y'all, we at almost 10 o'clock, and my blood sugar probably is dropping right now, and I gotta eat.
Hey, Linda just texted me on the side. We need to get me a backdrop screen. I think she's tired of looking at all our shit in the garage.
You know what? You can, Chris. It's not that hard because you can actually, like, I ordered mine, like, and right now I'm not happy because I got
just getting onto this show is like somebody flying the space shuttle in my brain. Like the thought of having to figure out how to do that, that's for other people. You can look. I do have a candle burning.
Well, you can order a tapestry stand, and I'm not happy right now because I just got this new computer and my backdrop. I don't like the fact that y'all can see like the little. Hold on. Wait a minute.
You just don't want us to see the dirty dishes.
I don't want y'all to be able to see that corner right there because I want this to be completely covered. I don't like this. I tried hard and I'm like, you know what? Forget it. But you can order those tapestries. We'll talk about it after the show. But I'm loving this right now because I'm not playing with y'all. Donut Predator and OCIR. I'm y'all's teacher right now. Like, come to the front. Come to the front. Come to the front of the class. I need y'all to reach out. Bon Hasso and Jason Broussard. Jason Broussard, attention, please. Jason Broussard, I need you to reach out to me, and I mean that. I need you to be on the next show. We're going to do another one. I'm going to reach out to Chris. We're going to wrap this up right now because it's 10 o'clock, and Taco Bell
I got to go eat dinner, man. I'm hungry.
Taco Bell calling my name, and right now where Chris is, it's 9:57. Pretty much call it 10 o'clock here. It's 8 something to Chris time, and so I got to go eat. My blood sugar to drop. Donut Predator OCIR, reach out immediately after the show. We don't have to talk tonight. I'll reach out to y'all tomorrow. We're not finished with this episode, and we never finish when it comes to this. Y'all always come. Y'all need to not stop coming with such good questions. I love it though. I love this. This is great. Every time we do this. So, Jason Broussard, reach out. I'm going to talk to y'all tomorrow because I'm tired and I got to go eat right now. But I promise y'all, like, this is not done. And anything that y'all want to talk about, if you're not a part of the group, Crypto Normal Encounters with B. Moss, and join the group. If you're not subscribed, then subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. We're going to go ahead and end this live now. We love y'all. Chris, any last words?
Nope. Another great time, Bettina. I'm always willing to hang out and chat, man. I love it. This is really my only platform, man. You know, this is where I get to learn a little bit and get to share some tales. I love it, man. I love just round table thinking, man. That's the way to go. I love the chat. Chat's fantastic. You know, this guy's really asked some poignant, good questions, and I'm grateful to be here. Somebody said we just Bettina and Chris unlived this show.
And look at Richard Cox.
I gotta go unlive some chicken.
Richard Cox says my ex-wife's a horny-breasted lounge lizard now. Oh my God, I can't.
I got one of those models back east, man.
Well, we love y'all. We're gonna let y'all go. Love y'all. We gotta go eat. I gotta drive to Taco Bell. Y'all know that's my favorite place to go. So I love y'all. Thank y'all for showing up and supporting the show tonight. Like I said, Chris is trying to convince me otherwise, but I don't enjoy this the same as I used to because I'm going through some things right now. But we're going to finish these shows up. But y'all, this might be my last year, so y'all make sure y'all tune in because this might be it. But anyway, everybody, good night.
I ain't gonna let that happen. She can say it all the time she wants. She knows I'll be all over that. That ain't happening.
Well, with that being said, y'all, love you guys. Thanks for showing up tonight, Chris. Y'all have a good night. Chris, stick around just real quick after the show. Good night, everybody.